Well, I research a variety of subjects that interest me, and at some point, just when I was reading casually, I stumbled across a mention of St. John's water dogs. I had never heard of them before. So that's what sort of motivated me to start researching them and bring the story to other people, because they're the ancestor of two of the world's most popular breeds, the Newfoundland dog and the Labrador Retriever. I have a PhD in Near Eastern Languages and Civilizations from Yale University, and I write about a wide variety of subjects. What I'm really interested in is taking subjects there's been academic research on and make it accessible for the general public, because there's so much that academics write about and research that never really makes its way out into general knowledge. So that's the type of writing I'm really interested in doing. It's a little challenging when you're reading about St. John's water dogs in historic documents, because they were called a variety of different things. They were called Newfoundlands, true Newfoundlands, lesser Newfoundlands, Labradors, small Labradors, black water dogs, wavy-coated retrievers. What they're talking about is the dog from Newfoundland, which would have been the St. John's water dog. They originated here in the province as a working dog in rural communities, but very little had been written about them that was generally accessible, at least not in recent years. More was written about them in the early 20th century when they were still kind of well known. In the 16th and 17th centuries, fishermen who arrived in the province from Europe, they would have been bringing dogs from England, Ireland, Portugal, and those dogs would have mixed and bred together. That resulted in a type of dog that had traits that were very useful for rural and outport life. So St. John's water dogs had a number of adaptations that made them very good in an ocean setting. They had webbed toes and these broad otter-like tails that also helped them with swimming. And they had oily coats, so the water would just run off them like a duck. They were renowned as divers, and St. John's water dogs, when in a working context, when they were out with fishermen, they would have been doing things like helping to haul in lines, pull in nets. If fish fell out of the nets, they would have been able to retrieve them. Here in Newfoundland, they were a rural dog. They were used by working people. They were used by fishermen, fishing families. But in England, it was the aristocrats who did hunting as a pastime who became really interested in what fantastic hunting dogs and retrievers these animals were and started importing them into England.
The spring of the year was a complicated time in outport Newfoundland. It meant food and resources were getting low, but that people could soon provide for themselves again. Every spring, ice floes with millions of seals would drift along Newfoundland shores, and outports like Petty Harbour and Madisco seemed to come alive again.
One thing that the people in that fellows in the harbour, not knocking anybody from anywhere, but there's a bunch of men there, could be 30 or 40 men there, and they're hiring on a few fellows. Same way getting a boat out to sea fishing. And the fellows at the harbour had a mark that the fellows knew, and when they saw that mark, they got their boat out to sea fishing or walking down there. No, they had a mark on the back. They all wore jean jackets them times. No, they carried jeans. And then sometimes the dogs and hog getting hard pace, they had to give a pull on the rope too. They'd be on their shoulder. And then with the acid of snow, they had this big white mark. Do you know what caused the mark? Him hauling on a rope to help the dogs along with the load of wood. A lot of hard going, right? It wasn't easy. Like I know some fellas that walked from Bonavista Bay. Now they only stayed in some kind of a lean-to or something, or to St. John's to get a berth to go to sea fishing. And then no guarantee getting seals. I've stuck the whole spring and never sent. The only real money is like when we got at the seal hunt, we made some real money. Now the first year I went back in 1970. I was with a Canadian boat, fellow Shaw, owner from Halifax. We had 20,000 seals, now we're stuck for 3 weeks. We didn't make frig money with them. We got a boat with the Norwegians. We got a good cut. We made money, right? Only now we got better gear than what we had when we went out there. But the same conditions, Not a bit different with regards to danger, right? No. I mean, no, I know got a couple of dips out there. And I tell you, when you hit that water, you got to wait around here in the winter. You haul out the ring up or something, put it on. You might get heat back in it. Yeah. You're not getting no heat back in that then. I always had a pair of socks in my bag. I have a bag with me. Now, get that situation, get on, but you still had to get to that boat and get a change then. I went out in town and jumped across from one pan to the other. Some guys went down and said, I can make that. Because you get used to, you could jump a good distance, you're only young. But when I jumped, the edge of the pan I was leaving, broke away from me. And when I got the other pan, oh boy, I don't know if I would have got up out of the water and on all the 2 or 3 fellas together, right? You never go off by yourself like that.
Look at it, how hardy and tough they were. Well, they used to call them wooden ships and iron men, right? That's how tough they were. They were strong. They were hardy men, right? Yeah. A lot of people. A lot of older people, like, you know, my age, like, I'm saying old, right, but was grew up on flippers, right? Like, my father worked at what they called working at the fat. So when years ago, when the sea hunt opened, it was they were white coats, and they killed them all. Like, they killed the white coats, they killed bed limbers, big harp seals, and hood seals and everything, but the fat was more important than the fur. So Dad and them my father used to get a job at the fat, and downtown was Boring Brothers. They used to have all the seal pelts there, right? So when the sealers were cleaning them, they were pelting the seals, right? But when they were cleaning them out on the ice, they were leaving all the more meat on the fat. Like right now, like you can see fat here, look. You can see fat on the here. That'd be left on the pelt because the fat was the oil. See what they wanted, right? And they would go down to Borings, and there was thousands of seals, like boatloads of them, and they're all piled up there, just lying in the sun. And they would go down, and their job was trimming the meat off the fat. You won't, every day we're eating seal meat. Come home with a big bag of seal meat. And my mother used to say, "Will you stop bringing that home?" And like we loved it, like. Every day, scraps. It was all like that. You come home with pieces of meat, like a bag or a bucket full of meat, and it was. We loved it. It was like there wasn't a lot of food on the go then, right?
No, nobody in Petty Harbour used a pony. There was over 500 dogs in Petty Harbour at one time, and they needed a lot of feed from them.
See, there was lots of stuff cut off like this, and it was just scraps, and the good line off the back, they kept that for themselves, and then Dad and them used to go down in their boat and take all this stuff and throw it down in the boat, fill up their, probably have, I don't know, 3,000 or 4,000 pounds of it, right? Come back to Petty Harbour and salt it. All scraps, all meat for the dogs in the winter time. Fat and a little bit of meat, right? Mostly meat, right? Put it in a brim bag. And then throw it out in the water, out over the wharf, let it soak, let the salt soak out of it. And the dogs would be going crazy for it, right? Anyhow, they have a rock in the bag, throw that in the water, and they go over and haul it up. Nothing in the bag, big hole in it. Dogs go over at night time, jump out in the water, dive down and tear it open, and they get all the meat.
You know, the bridge up here, you come from the Gould, you come across that bridge. Yeah. We lived there first, and then we moved down here. I say a good 40 years here now, up here. I lived up a bit further up by the town hall for a while, till I met a Southern Shore one. I fished for a few years, and then I got out of fish when the plant down here. I ran that for 7 years. And then after that, I moved up with a Petty Harbour Quappies. I ran that from the day she opened to the day she closed. We used to go down there down Blackhead and go down the ice, get your seed, come on home, clean them, cook them up. Yes, out here was they used to live out here and go to ice. My brother ran all the time. This community, pretty well in the community, was out to the seal fishery. We were down the Barney Brothers, then we cleaned the fat off, and then you put in the big drum, the sounders, and get all the old fat, and then you put it to dry. We'd bring the scraps home from and from, with fat pork and onions.
Okay.
The best you could eat, boy. We used to freeze it up and then give them so much and then feed the dogs. And also you salt your herring, and that's what the dogs live on for the winter, salt herring. We couldn't afford to buy dog food. Yeah. Everyone had a dog out here then, boy. Everyone had dogs. Oh, they weren't pets, no, they were used. Yeah. I had 3 rabbit dogs my own, and everyone here had a bird dog that go out the salt water, and the others had a setter for after the package. I used to leave Petty Harbour and go right down the shore before a load of wood up over the pans with the dog. I cut the load of wood, of box on the hatch, and take them in, come on right to Petty Harbour with them. That's the bike I use now. She's 11 years old, buddy. Now watch how easy she starts now. No, winter lads. No. Yeah. We keep our wood separate, we keep the juniper separate from the bear. Yeah. Yeah, and there's this one here, that's where all my birch is. That's mostly all birch.
Outport communities like Petty Harbour were built on the cod fishery. But in 1992, the government of Canada shut down the cod fishery. Almost overnight, 500 years of history and tradition were brought to a halt. The whole island depended on the cod fishery. Many communities had no choice but to resettle, while other communities like Petty Harbour Maddy's Cove were able to hold on.
The years after the moratorium was in 1992 when the crab got on the scene. There was a couple of crab permits got on the scene. I think it was 1994, 95. Crab is your money maker now. If you were to try to survive at this at cod, you starve dead. Literally starve dead.
When we were trapping, we see a crab, we curse on it and you jump and you throw it overboard. And now it's pure gold. Yeah.
We got involved in the crab in 94, 95 at the moratorium. And there was a crab fish on the go then before that, but it wasn't a big thing. But now crab is a big, that's the main one now, not the cod. There, probably 10 years ago, this fella, chief down the harbour, Arnold Chief, and the fisherman all his life. And he come down and we got at the crab first. By God, he said, you finally done it right. He said, the only, and it's compared to using cod traps, is a piece of cake. You man, how nothing told how you should heaving pots around all that, huh? Yeah. But you go out and haul the cod trap, they're usually up against the rocks, the water's usually rough, they can't stand up in the boat and trying to dip in a few fish, and a lot of work.
St. John's water dogs were always what's called a landrace breed. A landrace breed is a type of animal that's bred for function. It's bred for its job and what it does. It's not bred to have a particular look. The whole idea of pure breeding, and that it's only a St. John's water dog if you're breeding St. John's water dogs together, is an idea that comes from kennel clubs and standardized breeding. It's never the way that St. John's water dogs were bred historically as a landrace. So some people would argue that what we call Cape Shore water dogs today, which definitely have St. John's water dog ancestry and are bred for the same functions as hunting companions, fishing companions, are the same dog. So as far as I know, there haven't been any major attempts to revive the St. John's water dog as a breed. Farley Mowat, who lived in Burgeo for 5 years in the late 60s and early 1970s, owned a St. John's water dog, or what he believed was a St. John's water dog, named Albert, and he did breed Albert with a Labrador Retriever. It produced 4 puppies, only 2 of them survived, and he wound up giving the 2 survivors to Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau and to the Soviet Premier.
I tell you, when it came to spring, there wasn't much money. The spring was probably the hardest in the fall. You just got out of the boat fishing, so you should be in some kind of shape, right? Because you always said they're saying the hungry month of March.
Yes. Yeah.
And as I look back and seen what I got in and tell them what my father and what you went through, it was not easy. I often look back and say, how do you rear? There's 12 of us, 9 boys, 3 girls, right? I look back on how and he's only trying to put food on the table.